You are listening to Something Rather Than Nothing. Creator and host, Ken Vellante. Editor and producer, Peter Bauer.
This is Ken Vellante with Something Rather Than Nothing, and I am so pleased to have Dakota Noot on the show. It's one of those things. I was looking through Instagram. Somebody had sent me a link of your work, and I said, "Holy shit! I got to talk to this guy. I love it." I love the materials you use. I love. I just gotta introduce you, Dakota Noot. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. First of all, though, Dakota, I wanted to know if you were an artist when you were born.
Probably not. I mean, I don't know. I always grew up around art. Like, my dad teaches art classes, and that was my daycare. So, and also, if I had grown up in maybe, a more, normal environment with more things to do, maybe I wouldn't have ended up so crazy.
Did you get to a point of growing up? Was there an event or something said, well, I can do this, or I can make something, or what was that like? What happened?
It's funny, when I was growing up, I thought maybe I'd go more into writing too. I'd be channeling my creativity there. I mean, it still comes out in the work, right? I make up kind of imaginary worlds on my body. I don't write it. The most writing I do is coming up with a title now.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Let's just jump right into it. I mean,
yeah,
you got the fantastic images on the wall. You wear your art. You're part of it. Tell us about what that is. A lot of times I interview, painters. You put the painting up on the wall, and all that's fine. Music, all that's fine. What are you doing?
Oh yes, I mean, I make wearable art for my body. So typically they're really low tech too. I don't have skills with animation, editing, film, design, more with computers. Everything I do, I hand draw with Crayola crayons and colored pencils and marker. And then I make these pieces that I wear in my body. Medium wise, I think a lot of people associate more with children's colored books in childhood, but I'm typically making images of my guts getting ripped out. I'm giving birth. I'm becoming part animal in my work. Little off brand for a kid's book.
Yeah, I love I just recently spoke to an artist, Amy Guidry, who combines kind of the human and the animal in there. And I've just been bumping into a lot of stuff that's, juxtapositions, physical juxtapositions or juxtapositions of image. Do you use that overtly as a technique just to get people to be hey, look at what's going on with this, using yourself?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it came out of kind of anxiety or me thinking about, because I grew up in a very rural environment, heavy on eating meat, cooking out too. I wasn't ever questioning any of that. I'm surrounded by deer's heads on the wall. But now I do, coming to California, also there's so many more conversations about how the meat is being raised, the animals are being treated, or even the vegetarian vegan meat that I never grew up with. My art's kind of a way to process that and also kind of laugh at in a playful way.
Yeah, I love the playful component of it. I got some. We'll talk about your art, and I have some obvious conceptual questions, to reflect on what you do. One of the questions I have is about kind of you and kind of where you come from. What or who made you who you are?
Oh, probably the television set. I don't know. I grew up I was an only child, so I was mostly at home a lot. That was kind of my safe space too, being in kind of a very rural, conservative environment, a lot of bullying as a kid. So to me, cartoons is a safety outlet. I love cartoons, they can be killed, hit, slapped all the time and come back. There's that slapstick humor to it.
Yeah.
So I feel I channel that on my work. Even though there's a lot of violence, I'm living and laughing, performing with these pieces that you see. Yeah. So thank you, Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Yeah. Well, it's I don't know. It just, I think there's a part of it that helps encourage people to engage with the art. But Dakota, what what is art?
I feel like art is like it's transforming something to something else too, but like I love that art is artifice. I know like in terms of philosophy, like a lot of like the Greco-Roman too, they look at like art as like the illusion and it's a lesser than reality and lesser like than the gods and mythology. I've never seen that at that way. Like I'm never trying to capture the exact reality of what's around me. Like I'm more interested in like the camp and artifice of it. Like it is fake. I mean, I hope this is fake. You know, like my eyeball isn't popping out of my head in a hot dog.
So, as far as
I didn't even answer that question.
yeah. No, we're having fun, Dakota. It's totally fine. But yeah. What is art?
I mean, art can be anything, but like for me personally, like I love art that has some kind of craft or technique involved, some kind of creativity. Like there's skill put into it, or like some kind of magic too. That's the art I vibe with. I'm not taping a banana to the wall, but I'm taping a hot dog to my head. So.
All right. So on art itself, one of the things that keep coming up in interview artists is the role of disruption or reinforcement with art. And I love that question. But I ask it in a way as like, is art supposed to be disruptive?
I mean, it doesn't have to be. Like I've historically too, like art, like artisans and craftsmen, like I wouldn't say that's disruptive work. They're serving a purpose. I mean, most of the art we think of in the museum, like it's not trying to disrupt anyone. It's not trying to challenge the status quo. If anything, it's kind of reaffirming. But I mean, yeah, like for me, especially now, like art is so much, it's so divorced right now from like religion or necessarily being like political propaganda. Not saying it isn't sometimes.
Yeah, right.
But like there's the freedom now, especially the internet, to do so much more with it. I mean, I think that's very freeing. Why not embrace it?
Yeah, well, and I think one of the things is I've explored with the podcast is, you know, kind of like looking at the different type of media and people use, and I like the kind of like make it work aspect of, you know, like of your work. Take us down to LA, right? So take us down to, you got an art, whether it's a performance or an art exhibit, like what's going on? Like what Dakota Noot's there. What am I seeing? What are you up to?
Oh yeah, so I mean, I've actually made a lot of different work. Like I've done traditional paintings on walls that are framed, traditional drawings. Like my wearable art came out of like I used to do these installations that are going to be making a comeback, where I used to mount the drawings to like a foam core cutout, so they all look like cardboard props that you see like in a window display, but they're themed around like meat, the body, and animals. And so like they'd be on the wall, they'd be coming out at you in a window space. And then like during the pandemic, I'm like, I have no space to work in except my home and the parking lot around me or the KFC down the street. And I'm like, I started to wear and photograph it instead.
So it's an adaptation in the sense to conditions. You know, I've talked with guests and they'd be like, you know, a kid comes along and like, I'm not going to be playing the trumpet at 10:30 at night. Like I'm a writer now, and
you're going to the club.
Yeah, I love how the conditions can help, create like what it is that you can do. So about your art, what do you think your art is, and what do other people think your art is?
I mean, my work's this way to make me laugh and also process the world around me. Like I'm always thinking about like what I'm eating straight up, but also my relation to animals. I'm also thinking about my body too, like the sexuality, how provocative it is, or like if it's not. It's funny because like even stuff like online too, like how people react. Like someone was like reacting to my body not being buff enough. That inspired me to make work where I was more buff.
The audience is participating in what comes out of the art here. Yeah. So do you find that as a reflexive relationship of what you're hearing, whether it be from social media or what have you, that impacts what you create? Because some artists would be like, look, I'm going back here. Here's the thing that's out there, and that's it, you know? So you feel a little bit more of a reflexive relationship with your audience?
Yeah, I mean, since I'm inspired by cartoons and television, I mean, those like the writers are typically responding to like the fans, the community, what they want too. I like that relationship where it's very reciprocal too. I mean, not all the time. Sometimes I just want to make something and freak people out, and I'm like, I don't care if they like it or not.
Yeah, and you have the ability to do that. And the reason why I asked that question, because artists have so many, well, they have just completely different approaches, and they can be hard approaches to, to the audience. And I think using the podcast and, creating this podcast, it's interesting to put things out and then to see what people are saying or what should come out of it. We were talking about you're talking about the conditions and dealing with the pandemic and things like that. And it's a question I've asked throughout the show of do you feel that it's been more important to create your art like through the pandemic? Do you feel like either for yourself or for your audience that like you needed to, or you felt you didn't need to or didn't want to? What was your relationship with producing?
I mean, it's actually really funny you ask that question because like most of the artists I know here in LA too, like most of them have stopped making this this past year, which is really sad. But I feel like a lot are losing inspiration. Like if anything, this year has made me reflect on it and kind of becoming more confident with like, okay, like I'm doing this. It's relevant to what's going on too. Like I'm not making little COVID artwork. Like I'm making work that's personal to me with a lot of meat and animals. But it's interesting, like I was like, there's a lot of themes in it that were relevant to what was going on right now. And also like I found a way to do it where like I can pump my work out very quickly. So like I've just kept rolling with it during the pandemic because I'm not commuting to work anymore. It's all online. Like I'm in a year, if things are back to normal, I might not ever have this time back.
Right. I was recently. I mentioned I was speaking recently with Amy Guidry, a surrealist artist, melding of bodies, animal and human, and we got into an extended conversation about the environment and about animals. And I know you mentioned that a couple of times. I've been a vegan for 26 years, and she uses her art very particularly to stop, bring awareness to look at animals and the environment. And I've heard you mention that, and I know the Midwest. I lived in Wisconsin for 10 years. The animals, I know a particular relationship with animals that's kind of differ in some parts, from other areas. What is that role for you? I mean, like, do you take into? I mean, how important is that to press on on animals and that relationship with your art?
I mean, I don't want to shame anyone for what they eat too. I mean, again, like for me, like I'm definitely not like a picture perfect like vegetarian right here, obviously, because like I told you my background, like I think anyone who comes from a rural background too, they're typically kind of more aware of like the actual farming aspect of like the kind of the violence, like they see it more in person, but then they still choose to eat it. I don't know if that's that could be more horrifying. But like, yeah, too, like coming here to California, it's like I'm meeting so many people that like are thinking about like what they're eating too, and also like I was too, as like I was getting healthier and like making my own food. I'm an adult. The pandemic has also made me more vegetarian too. Like I don't eat meat unless it's more eggs or fish, and even that, like it's been very rare. Like I've been slowly just like easing off on all of it.
Well, of course, Dakota, we're having a great discourse. It's great to meet you, and you're wearing a hot dog on your head, so
I know. There's great vegan dogs.
They're vegan dogs, of course. They're totally vegan. Hey, Dakota, I'm gonna pop in the big question here, and I got a few more to follow up with you. But I always like to ask the titular podcast question is. Why is there something rather than nothing?
I'm like, nothing to me would be like me just like laying on the couch right now watching a horror movie. I mean, which honestly doesn't sound that bad. I don't know, like it's self-entertainment too. I mean, most of my work, I'm not really making it with the goal of trying to sell it, especially with like these paper pieces. For me, it's just entertainment. Like I make something I want to see in the world. Like I'm kind of injecting myself into it. I'm making my own movie or fan fiction to watch, however you want to phrase it. But hey, yeah, maybe after this, I'm just going to chill and watch a bunch of movies for the rest of the
day. I got a question about your work or with. So I think of I think of LA, and everybody has an idea of LA. But I know a lot of artists, a lot of creators, a lot of like technically gifted folks. Do you work solo or with groups of folks? And if you work with groups of folks, has that been an adjustment as well over the last few months?
Yeah, so I work and collaborate a lot. I mean, even though like a lot of my work looks solo, I guess my husband does take the pictures for it. So I mean, I credit him too. It is a very collaborative process where like I help him with some taking shots of his stuff, he does mine, but also he is the photographer and has the technical skills to light and adjust all of this.
Right.
So like even though like I'm hand drawing in it, I'm not a photographer. And also like even outside of it too, like whenever I'm like organizing or working with other artists, like we're always collaborating and working on it. I adjust my practice to kind of match theirs depending on the context. Right. I did a public art pop-up at like KFC, which is like a block away from me, where we were like putting work outside, but then I was making like a Colonel Sanders look for it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done that normally.
Was it appreciated?
Yeah. I mean, they are not paid enough to care over there.
I like your workstations. Any Dakota, any if it's applicable, any exhibits or display or around town where, like, if physically, if appropriate, where can people find your stuff?
Oh yeah, so I have a couple things happening. So like right now I have a traveling art show with my dad in the state of North Dakota, even though I've moved out. It's going to be coming back in November, December around the state, and then throughout 2022. It's all painting work, so it's a different side of me.
Yeah.
And I'm also doing a residency this summer in San Diego in July, where I'll be making a new installation of the space. So instead of just me doing a look on my own body, it's going to be filling the space again, which I'm really excited for.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear about the installation. How long will you be there for? A while?
Yeah, it'll be like a month and a half.
Wonderful, wonderful. Dakota, where else can listeners find your stuff? Is like a website, Instagram, all that stuff?
Yeah, so my website, Instagram, also I have a Facebook too. Like they're all under my name, Dakota Noot. My last name is weird. I've gone over that fact. Noot, N-O-O-T. I'm the only Dakota Noot in the world, so like no matter what kind of symbols you put in that, it's gonna pop up my name.
That's probably the best and easiest answer out of all the episodes that I've done. You're only going to find one of me. No, I just love it. One of the things I also wanted to ask about a little bit further is what when it comes to like the work that you've done that's been like more standard, like you said you've done painting and landscapes like that. How was that for you? Did you move into like a little bit more what you're doing now in this project out of a reaction to that, or is it just like a development where you're like, this seems more me?
I mean, they all flow together too. Like even my paintings, they're the same subject matter, just rendered differently. Like my paintings are even like brighter colors because I'm using metallics and fluorescence a lot. Like, so they've always flowed together ideas and informed each other. Like sometimes I'll draw something that I was working on the painting idea and vice versa. I don't have like severely different bodies of work. Like the content is kind of consistent throughout it, even if the medium and style is a little different.
Yeah. I wanted to let the listeners know that we'll have some video of the Dakota for the YouTube, and just so you're able to see some.
I wore this just in case.
Dakota, you took care of everything for me on your side. So, but I wanted to let listeners know about that. And Dakota, any just kind of like general thoughts, anything we didn't cover that you just wanted to speak about?
I don't know. I mean, I guess like other than I feel like I played up cartoons a lot. A lot of my work is inspired by like Cronenberg and body horror too. But like those are typically very like gutsy and bloody. If you fuse that with like a colorful cartoon like Fantastic Planet, that's the equation for my art.
I love this, Dakota, because you got to an equation for your art, and that's never happened.
Yeah, like little math right
there. Dakota, I wanted to thank you so much for visiting with the show. I adored the energy of your work, the vitality. It just makes me feel alive. Thank you for what you do, and thanks for visiting the podcast. It's been a great pleasure to meet you.
Same, like, thank you for bringing me on. Like, this has just like been very fun and conversational. It's like no one's even listening, but then they are.
Well, nobody's listening now, but
Not yet.
there'll be plenty of fans.
I know.
We got a great listenership. And,
I guess shout out to everyone who's listening when this gets posted. Like, thank you for tuning in.
Hey, and everybody, you got to listen to the one and only Dakota Noot.
It could mean something.
This is Something Rather Than Nothing,